Welcome back. So still on trigonometry. So the last video we talked about quadrant. So let's try and use the quadrant method to solve this to solve this question. Now example, the question says solve the following. Solve the following. Now question 1 says sine 30 degree. How do you solve sine 30 degree? Using the quadrant method. Now don't forget that in the quadrant method, what do we say? From 0 degree to 90 degree, that's the first quadrant, right? Between 0 degree to 90 degree, that's the first quadrant. And what do we say on the first quadrant? All are positive. Sine, cos, and tan are positive. While on the second quadrant is anything that falls between 90 degree and 180 degree, right? So on the second quadrant, what do we say is positive? On the second quadrant, only sine is positive, right? While cos and tan are negative. So, and how do you get the angle in the second quadrant? You say 180 minus what? Minus that angle. And on the third quadrant, how do you get the angle? You say that angle minus what? 180. That angle minus 180. So is any angle, how do you know the angle that falls on the third quadrant? Is the angle between 180 and what? 270. While on the fourth quadrant, any angle that falls between 270 degree and what? And 360 degree is anything that falls on the fourth quadrant. Now, and how do you get the angle? You say 360 degree minus what? Minus that angle. Now let's go. We have sine 30 degree. 30 degree falls on which quadrant? On the first quadrant, right? So, and what do we say? Is sine positive on the first quadrant or not? We said all are positive, right? Meaning sine, cos, and tan are positive on the first quadrant. So what do you just do? So since you know that what? The angle still remains the same, right? So it is positive on the first quadrant. So what do we call it? We call it sine 30 degree. We call it sine. So it's still the same angle you will use there. And what is sine 30 degree? Sine 30 degree is what? 0.5. 0.5. So let's check. Sine 30 degree will give us what? 0.5. So that is how we get for what? Sine 30 degree. So it's also positive, right? Now, cos 50 degree. Now, the first thing you have to take note of is the angle. Now, that 50 degree falls on which quadrant? Still on the first quadrant because it is between 0 to 90, right? So it still falls on the first quadrant. So meaning the cos is also still positive, right? That cos 50 degree. And what is cos 50 degree going to give us? Cos 50 degree will give us that's 0.6. Let's just approximate it and put it. That's 0.6428. Let's just put it in 4 decimal place. 0.6428. Do you understand? So now, what of tan 22 degree? The first thing you have to look is what? Is the angle. This 22 degree falls on which quadrant? First quadrant. So it's still also positive. That's plus tan 22 degree, right? Now, what is tan 22 degree? Tan 22 degree will give us that's 0.4040. That's 4040. Do you get 0.4040? Now, let's come to the fourth one, sine 120 degree. Sine 120 degree. Now, don't forget, the first thing you have to first check is the angle. Now, this 120 degree falls on which quadrant? Is it the first quadrant, second, or third, or fourth? So it falls on the what? Second quadrant. You know, the second quadrant is from 90 to what? 180. So 120 falls between 90 to what? 180. So meaning is on the second quadrant. And what do we say is positive on the second quadrant? What do we say? It is only sine that is positive. So meaning my sine is still positive here, right? So that's plus, right? You say sine. So how do you get the angle on the second quadrant? How do you not get the angle? I said on the second quadrant, it is 180 minus that angle. So that will be what? That will now give us 180 degree minus 120 degree. Do you get? Do you understand what we just did? So what is it going to give us? So it's going to give us plus sine. So here is what? 60 degree. And what is sine 60 degree? Sine 60 degree will give us 0.8660. Do you understand? So that is just how the first thing you have to first look at the angle. It falls on which quadrant? The second quadrant. And what's positive on the second quadrant? Sine. So it's still positive. Then how do you now get the angle? You say 180 minus what? 180 minus 120. You know, you say 180 minus that angle. That's 180 minus what's the angle here? 120. That's sine plus sine 60 degree. And that's how we have it as what? 0.8660. Now, cos 100. 100 falls on which quadrant? On the second quadrant, right? So what's positive on the second quadrant? Only sine is positive. Cos and tan are negative. So what do you now write? You will now write what? Negative. Negative cos. Do you understand? Negative cos. Then how do you now get the angle there? You know, we say 180 degree minus that angle, which is 100 degree. So 180 minus 100 will give us what? That will be negative what? 180 minus 100 will give us cos 80 degree, right? So, and what is cos 80 degree? That will give us minus 0.1736. You understand? You understand? So, 100 degree falls on the second quadrant. And how do we get, on the second quadrant, what is positive? Only sign is positive, cos is negative. So that's why we have it as negative cos. Then how do you now get the angle? That's 180 minus 100 minus that angle. So that's how we have minus cos 80. When you press it, you give us minus 0.1736. Now, let's check. To check. Now, let's press cos 100 direct. Press cos 100. What do you get? You get minus 0.1736. You see that it's the same thing. Do you understand? Press cos 100 direct and see if it does not give you this answer. Do you understand? Now, coming to the third and the sixth one, we have tan 175 degree. Now, 175 degree falls on which quadrant? Still on the second quadrant, right? It's between 90 to 180. So, tan 175 degree falls on the what? On the second quadrant. And what's positive on the second quadrant? Only sign. Cos and tan are negative. So, meaning this tan 2 is also negative. That will be minus tan. Then how do you get the angle? You say 180 degree minus, what is the angle we have? Say 175 degree. 180 degree minus, that's minus tan. 180 degree minus 175 degree will give us what? That's 5 degree, right? That would be 5 degree. So press minus tan 5 degree. So what do we have? We have minus 0.0875. Minus 0.0875. So that is how we get this. Now let's check. To check, press tan 175 degree direct. You see that it will give us minus 0.0875. So we're approximating it to 4 decimal point. 4 decimal point. After the 4 decimal digit. Now, sine 190 degree. 190 degree falls on which quadrant? Check. 190 falls on the what? On the third quadrant, right? Because it's already more than 180. So, and we say on the third quadrant is anything between 180 to what? 270. So 190 is already in between 180 to what? 270. So it falls on the third quadrant. And on the third quadrant, what is positive? Tan. Only tan is positive. So what are we having? Sine. So meaning it's going to be what? Negative. So you say, so you say negative sine. So how do you now get the angle? On the third quadrant, how do you get the angle? Now, it is not 270 minus that angle. Don't go and use 270. It is that angle minus what? 180. So what is the angle we have? 190 degree. You say 190 degree minus what? 180 degree. Do you understand? On the third quadrant, how do you get the angle there on the third quadrant? It is that angle minus what? 180. So what do we now have? That will be minus sine. 190 minus 180 will give us 10 degree. And what's 10 degree? That will be minus 0.1736. 1736. Do you understand? Now let's press sine 190 degree direct. You see that is minus 0.1736. Do you understand? So let's come to cos 210. 210 falls on which quadrant? 210 falls on the third quadrant, right? Because it's between 180 to 270. So what do we now have? Meaning that on the third quadrant, what is positive? Only tan is positive. Cos and sine is negative. So meaning this cos here is also what? Negative. So that will be minus cos. And how do we get the angle? We say that angle minus what? 180 degree. So 210 minus 180 will give us what? That will be negative cos. So that will give us what? That will give us 30 degree. So and what is minus cos 30 degree? So we have it as minus 0.8660. You get? So let's press cos 210 direct. Press cos 210 degree and check. You see it's the same answer, right? So it's still the same answer. So let's come to the ninth question. 250 degree falls on which quadrant? 250 falls on the third quadrant because it's still between 180 to what? 270. So it falls on the what? Third quadrant. So now on the third quadrant, what's positive? We say tan. So it's positive. That will be plus tan. So how do we get the angle? We say that angle minus 180, right? That's how we get the angle there. So tan, that's, here we now give us plus tan. 250 degree minus 180 degree will give us what? We give us 70 degree, right? 250 degree minus 180 degree will give us 70 degree. Now let's press tan 70 degree, and that will give us 2.7475. You get? So let's check. Press tan 250 degree direct. That's 2.7475. This is actually correct. So now coming to the 10th question. 300 degree, 300 degree. Now when we have 300 degree, 300 degree, the angle there falls on which quadrant? On the fourth quadrant, because it's already more than 270, right? So and anything between 270 to 360 is what? Is on the fourth quadrant. So that's 300 degree. And what's positive on the fourth quadrant? Only cos. Don't forget, we know it as cast. You see all these things. The reason why I can easily just know that what's positive on that quadrant is because I have the diagram in my head. And how do I have the diagram in my head? I know where my first quadrant is, I know where my second, my third, and my fourth. And I know it as cast, cos, all, sine, tan. Do you understand? So and I know it as cast from the fourth to the third. Do you understand? So that's why I have the diagram in my head. That's why it's very easy for me to just be naming all this thing. Now, it means that only cos is positive on the fourth quadrant. So meaning my sign here is negative, right? So it means my sign here is negative. The sign here is negative. So that will be minus sine. So how do you get the angle on the fourth quadrant? You know, we say 360 degree minus what? Minus that angle. So here will now be what? 360 degree minus 300 degree. And what do we have? That will be minus sine 60 degree. So when you press minus sine 60 degree, that will give us minus 0.8660, right? So let's check. Press sine 300 degree direct. You see, it's to give us the same answer. So it will definitely give us the same answer. So coming to this place, 330 degree. Check the angle first. It falls on which quadrant? On the fourth quadrant. And what's positive on the fourth quadrant? Cos, meaning is also positive. Cos. And how do you get the angle? That will be 360 degree minus 330 degree. And that will give us what? Cos. This one will give us what? 30 degree, right? And what is it going to give us? That will give us 0.8660. Let's check. Cos 30 degree will give us what? 0.8660. Now let's press cos 330 degree. That's 0.8660. So it's still the same thing. Now, this 345 degree falls on which quadrant? Fourth. And what's positive? Only cos. So tan is negative. So that will be minus tan. And how do you get the angle? That will be 360 degree minus 345 degree. And what do you have? That will be minus tan. So here will give us what? Here will give us 15 degree. So minus tan 15 degree will give us what? So that will give us minus 0.2679. 2679. You get 2679. Now let's press tan 345 degree direct. That's minus 0.2679. And that's how we solve the whole question. I hope you understand. So whenever you are given questions like this, you can also what? Just break it down. It's still the same answer. Let's say you are not even having a calculator. So it's still the same answer you will actually get. So this is just actually using the quadrant method. Do you understand? So I hope you find this video helpful. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you watch the next video. Because the next video, what if you are given, let's say you are given sine 1000 degree. 1000 degree, is it part of quadrant? No. So how do you solve that kind of question? Make sure you watch the next video. Watch the next video. It's going to be very, very important. Watch it. Because when you are giving, okay, let's say you are giving cos 390 degree. 390 degree, does it fall on any quadrant? No. So how do you solve that kind of question? Make sure you watch the next video. And please don't forget to like this video and share this video. Share. Thank you.